So here it is, building a coven on magic. Of course, magic is real, and anyone who argues to the contrary is an oblivious fool. The mind is the greatest instrument, whose mutability is as wide as the horizon. The mind of man is the mind of God. There is only one mind, omnipresent in every cubic centimeter of space. As with all instruments, the more it is played, the more it is understood. Analyzing and categorization have their place, but analyzing degrades by simplification. The Om, the Absolute, transcends all languages or attempts to codify, a reality above criticism. All ideas are quantum foam, constantly seething and mutating into potential archetypes of manifestation. It is will and intention that guides the amorphous collective. Which came first, thought or motion? Is consciousness an accident of motion, an evolving static memory embossed upon all of space, or is mind the progenitor of all things? Presupposing the latter, that fine-tuning indicates design, with mind being the designer, knowing by inference of faith the unfolding of a divine plan, the instrument of reason takes on new importance. Knowing that mind permeates all, which is the source of all individual consciousness, the adept will see the path of wisdom. The highest expressions of magic must by default be the laying of hands in prayer. Miracles have occurred long after Jesus if you're looking for them. Talbot espouses on it in no small detail in a holographic universe. The suggestion being that consciousness can tap into its connection throughout all space, which has the information of all creation within it, and heal the wounded and sick. Stories of nuns taking cancer into them from others, not eating or drinking for decades, the placebo effect. These tactics hearken to the unity of things, that together we are stronger than apart, by our communion and fellowship. On the other side of heaven, the shadow. These forces that might be used to lift you up and soar with the angels might too be put to mechanical ends. Pure expressions of force, of desire, of will. You could capitalize all of them if in their secrets you see totems of veneration. Both sides must be necessary, as the earth is marred with epochs of pestilence as well as prosperity. So too must mind be filled with caverns of darkness as well as beacons of light. A sigil is a talisman of power. When crafted by the hands of an adept, the shadow reaches across the world and binds. An orgone collector manufactured by a robot in a factory yields little to nothing beyond intellectual intrigue. However, that same orgone collector, part and parcel, when crafted by hand, suspends divine resonance within it and projects it out into creation. The compass and straight edge, square, from the brow of Mount Moriah, are by necessity the finest scientific instruments that can ever be, as they always deliver absolute truth, lawful, unlawful, and the infinite space between, bounded in a nutshell. Casting spells, spelling, grimoire, grammar. You can sum it up by saying that magic and sorcery, ESP, remote viewing, all these things are conscious conjurations of electrical fields. Magic is done in the light, sorcery is done in the dark. These electric fields of intention are coagulated by mind. They can be used to fortify the self, they can be given out, they can be harvested naturally or stolen through wicked conspiracy. So the practitioner, magician, and sorcerer alike conspires through their will to sap the life force or vitality out of their intended target, as attempting to wield the philosopher's stone, the alchemical transmutation. As far as harvesting or psychic pilfering, on the worst side is psychic warfare, which always leads to destruction if perpetuated. And on the best side is the consumption of illness taken out of the sick and brought into the adept by will alone, or removed completely back into the void. There are many examples of this throughout recorded history. Mainly nuns, pious people, holy people, seeking through meditation and contemplation of divinity to take on the sins of the world. The stronger the mind, the deeper the reservoir of wisdom and knowledge, the denser the electrical braid of intention will be, the greater the result. Thaumaturgy, telekinesis, psychokinesis, all originate by this understanding. You can get it for free, lawfully, by simply going to church. When pious people lift up their hearts to God, and you are in need of extra life force, these rooms are always, if sincere, overflowing with devotion, and life force offered up in prayer and communion with the deity. On the other side, pure black magic sorcery is a conscious effort to engender a physiological spike in all cohesive biorhythms to harvest the discharge or destroy the target and fortify the adept thereby. Example, pure conjecture, pure hypothesis. Say a husband and wife are newly married, and the husband is a famous filmmaker, and they're real hip, sophisticated, sexually enlightened wife-swapping types. And though some might know, most do not know, that they are both savage psychics. While shooting his film, the lead actor, a notorious playboy who thinks he's cool, and maybe is a sweet-natured guy on some level, but is largely a horse's ass, gets a crush on the new wife, because she's as fine as any woman can be. So lead actor Jackass comes to psychic writer-director and says, "Hey man, your wife's real hot. Can I have her?" Filmmaker smiles and pats him on the back, knowing said actor is incapable of exerting any real influence over her, and says, "Sure, buddy, what's mine is yours." And though filmmaker never says it, he thinks, "And what's yours is mine." The other side of this is that young exotic wife tells filmmaker she wants to fuck actor, which makes the end game far more sinister. But in any event, however it transpired in terms of their coming together, come together they did. And when she put that magic on him, just a morsel, 2%, a whisper of her prowess, he gets swallowed immediately, lost in that tantric sexuality imbued with psychic mind manipulation. And he's on her, texting, always wanting to see her, all up her ass and making it weird. And so husband and wife hatch a plot to see him understand where he fits into the equation. And when they think of him and his efforts to, and what they think of him and his efforts to divide the two of them. So she dumps it all on him, blasts him with a wild, dense braid of lust and infatuation, fucks him multiple times a day for, say, a week, spins him all the way up beyond the firmament, and so far, to where all he sees is her. All he knows is that she wants to be with him. And then resting on that cloud of biorhythm spike, they conceive a baby, husband and wife, and announce it in front of everyone who had been watching him chase after her like a horny teenager. And when his humiliation and embarrassment spikes his hormones and his neurological activity spikes in novel ways, reduced to a pathetic puddle of shit, husband and wife harvest that excess of life force through intention and fortify the soul of the developing fetus. And when lover boy spirals into depression and can't get the goods in front of the lens, filmmaker tells him, "Hey dude, it's okay buddy, we'll name the baby after you." And actor congratulates him, says he's happy, and it was never anything, of course, to save face. But under the surface he knows, he thought he was playing a game he never fully understood, and was measurably aged thereby. The other alternative, equally depraved and fucked up, is that actor gives hot wife baby for ritualistic expressions of will, psychic filmmaker fantasy sorcerer shit. And when actor gets depressed because he can't talk about it and feels like a whore, psychic filmmaker tells him they'll name the baby after him. So the two interpretations of this purely hypothetical example of sorcery is this. It approaches pure evil if she conspired to fuck him and make him fall in love with her. But the likelier outcome, as they are newlyweds in their honeymoon phase, with cultured sexual palates, for how this could possibly play out in some hypothetical situation, would go something like what I just regaled, where Playboy thought he could hang, and she gave him a whisper, 3% of what her and husband do all the time. And after she hit him with even that weak whisper of rhapsody and magic, he became instantly addicted. And then it becomes funny, because he did it to himself, because he's not actually cool. He just thought he was. It's a subatomic, superatomic condition. All depths, all strata, all convocations simultaneously. The archetypal engine, ever present. A hologram so perfect in its construction, it is too wide to be expressed physically. The engine is intention, the expression of the knowing through motion into kinetic corruption. Shadows of light. There's a thought. It is known everywhere forever. What the thought is irrelevant. It is a static knowledge. The canvas of space is ever conceiving, ever conceptualizing, ever pregnant with this knowing. Contemplation and conception, a collapse of potential around the subspatial scaffolding. With the increase in density around the astral skeleton, the coagulation of space is too charged and too dense to remain inert and must discharge the divine orgasm, releasing some spectral phantom of the certainty of the absolution of the pure thought through thought force. If all thoughts exist in this celestial matrix, all that open up the matrix is mine, Exodus 34:19. And the engine of intention which binds space into kinetic motion is operating as a single field of knowing, perfectly braided and diffused to seeming dissolution. However, it is supreme, beyond any mechanical expression of its parts. The whole expresses whichever piece is illumined by the light of reason and intent, mutating pressure fields of space, generating electric current through friction, engendering novelty. This is magic. And man's brain is the supreme filter. Man is the end of evolution. There is nothing else manifested that can exceed the reasoning capacity of man. Anything beyond is angelic, and therefore not human. Perhaps purple humans live on Alpha Centauri. If we are supposed to find them, we will. They are the same. They are not alien, they are different expressions of man, being the end of evolution by way of recognition of the divinity embedded within all. A sincere reflection of creature towards creator, impossible until modern man, which, yes, includes caveman. I often wonder about the first generations, where man began standing upright, the old actor's adage, "What do I do with my hands?" Lots of flailing and primal dancing, and that first one, very interesting. Standing twice as tall as everyone else, he got all the pussy, I'm sure, or he died twice as fast, being an easier target. But there was a patient zero that betrayed the design of his backbone his entire life for the first time, constantly looking up, humiliated by everyone who misunderstood him. Terence McKenna suggests the alchemical child at the end of time. It is the same idea, that eventually that first man staring at his hand in the cave at night around the fire, that special night, some peculiar celestial arrangement, strange astrologies. And he took a bamboo reed, hollow, chewed a mouthful of berries, held his hand against the cave wall, and blew the first artwork into creation. What do I do with my hands? And like that man, McKenna suggests we're barreling towards the emergence of another strata of that notion, a person who emerges with such novelty of expression that they transmute the entire world. The stakes for the expression of these powers are as meaningful as you make them. If you seek to express malevolence, you should expect it to degrade your physical body thereby. And if you seek miracles upon the world, if your motivation is anything less than absolute devotion to divinity, the understanding that by wisdom you can know how the universe works, and through its workings in the mind of man, you express the same thought forces which manifest and transmute all of inert space into manifested reality, then you will fail, or succeed at a terrible price. To pray for the sins of the world, to offer spiritual condolences sincere, however meager, always yield, never seeking anything beyond to assist, to heal, to commune. This is always lawful and accepted without cost. The reason being thus: man's expression of intention is a creation of an electric field of intention, as with a cell phone. A cell phone is a crude brain. All innovation stems from primeval primitive awareness, subatomic, supratomic. If a musician plays a violin in the water, if possible, perhaps a waterproof speaker exists, it must, but the scuba diving violinist rakes the bow across the strings. The sound wave ripples out as a sphere in all directions, not linear, no straight lines in nature. Instrumentation reads linear as a result of time, not as a result of the physical condition of the electric waves, which are always spherical, always. A thought is also an electric wave. The hardware of the brain coagulates the magnetic and electric body of the thought force, as with the arrangement of the strings in the fingering hand, and the conscious field, present unilaterally, pushes the thought out as a wave as with the sonic vibration, the raking of the bow of the waterlogged violin. Therefore, radiating out omnidirectionally as a sphere, the constitution of the conjuration always passes through the body, omnidirectionally, instantaneously, always seeking its target. God the Father, a locale, a place in time, a place in space, a person buried alive, a child lost in the woods, a spy carrying a MacGuffin. Healing the sick, taking on the sicknesses of others, it is all the same thing. The more effort is dedicated to the thought, the higher the expression of the incantation. Example, a farmer wants to see his crops not wither away from drought. The first dimension is a simple plea. The second dimension is finding a way to divert water. The third dimension is bringing the village together and all dancing and singing together. The fourth dimension has them all dancing and an artist drawing out or painting the scene with the field flourishing with an abundance of crops, with the appropriate celestial conditions which exist overhead. And from there, the fifth dimension, the last edge of the pentagram. The mystic medicine man casts a giant pentagram or some such the like, in the middle of the field with the dancers all around, and a fire burning. And for days, until they all drop from exhaustion, they perpetuate their rhythms and chants, as well as ritualistic sex, where all the sexual fluids soak the drawing, no conception conceiving, Gnostic fervor, bringing all conspirators to a rhapsody in magic, blasting the area with fever dreams of intention, drugs, all these things. And lastly, they burn the effigy to sear it into their subconscious. The increase of electrical output, so communal in nature as it radiates out, will, perhaps, act as gravitational nodes in the upper atmosphere, which coagulate water vapor into clouds and rain. Yes, that's the full scope of the condition. I have no master, no order to betray, no oath to break, no teacher to supersede. But it is vulgar to say much beyond. All these tricks can be employed just as easily to destroy. It's easier to be cruel. It is easier to destroy. All manifested life crepuscular is barreling forever towards death. It is a push in the right direction, no more. Pushed upon adept and target all the same. The waveform always finds its target, but always passes first through the adept. The quantum entanglement is the seed of teleportation of thought force. You can push a thought out, and it will find its target eventually, always. However, if you entangle two disparate locales, you can also create the thought in another location. This is the far more dangerous ploy. This is the highest sorcerer's stone, and I'll say no more about it. Time travel, nothing is impossible for consciousness. If Walter Russell espouses truth in his sublime philosophy, the continuous two-way universe, and his sublime thought that all things that were and ever shall be reside within all of space, seeking their moment of expression with absolute patience, the Catholic Catechism takes on a new level of wonder. As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be. Then to travel in time, is simply to bring your divine awareness into that moment, past, present, or future. The greater the depth of understanding, the easier the connection is made. Remote viewing tests often encumber unnecessarily the medium to force understanding when the light of truth will never diminish psychic capacity. They put a locale in time, space, or both in a sealed envelope, then tell you to tell them what they see. But if the veil is lifted as much as is possible, the depth of the view will be all the more clear. It can be alleged this somehow diminishes the psychic capacity by offering details that could inculcate false notions, which is true regarding imagination. However, on the other side of that, the more the medium knows at the onset, the easier the bridge is built. All chemical signatures have their own divine pattern. I would say sigil or structure. A chemist would say structure or some such. So knowing the pigments used in famous paintings, you can isolate the molecular structure sigil of each color. And if you know where the painting was painted, and if you know the celestial conditions overhead at the time, you can meditate by focusing first on the painting, then on the molecular structure of the pigments, then perhaps a picture of the artist, if one exists, as well as the positions of the heavens overhead. This brings the adept into holistic resonance with all the spatial as well as celestial conditions apparent at the time of the creation. This extends to the foliage in the area, landscape, atmospheric conditions, structure within all, the politics of the time, the language spoken, all sigils, divine roadmaps embedded within all. If you have a map of the town or a picture of the location, you embed as much of the information about the time sought as you can hold within your mind at the same time. And eventually it would become so dense that it dissolves into certainty, and the psychic crucible of the mind's eye holding all of this knowledge, suspended perpetually through intention, will reveal the target. Every time. Future, present, past. Undoubtedly, you could stare at old photographs and get all the way to the first photos, say 1815. Optics and paintings extend to the 16th century. But the greater the depth of resonance, the stronger the psychic connection, the stronger the mystical braid. A memory is its own disease. It can be manipulated as a shadow puppet into the mind of the unaware. The mind is a desert wasteland as well as a garden of paradise. On the side of light, white magic, a conjuration of this magnitude could ease the suffering of the moment of death, bring joy to the despondent, offer a light. There is no darkness without the absence of light. There is no light without the absence of darkness. On the other side is pinnacle malevolence. The practitioner, the sorcerer, if a piece of information is known, a name, a face, a moment, then the information is projected through intention as a fabricated elemental, as with Ariel. If thou more murmurest, I will rend an oak, and peg thee in his knotty entrails, till thou hast howled away 12 winters. The Tempest, Act 1, Scene 2. So the oak is the mind of the victim, the spirit is pegged within by intention, and vivisected thereby by the adept. Crowley says, and I paraphrase here, that demon conjuring, elemental conjuring, is the calling of one part of your psyche to another. But it can be done. One person with a keen psychic pulse can implant false impressions of people by their imagination. The more known, the deeper the illusion. Magic is not about controlling the material world, though in bursts it does for a myriad of reasons. But it is a psychological tool to a psychological end more often. Mystics of ages long gone labored day after day after day for the proliferation of the rain. Not knowing the chaos of the weather is beyond the understanding of all save God, they labored nonetheless. With some successes, but the tactics. I have a mind, which is God's mind, which is everywhere. By will alone I seek to see the clouds form and the rain fall. Refinement sees the ages hone the mind, and what once was wide, seeking to carouse the heavens, now is distilled, seeking to control you. So, right? That's the first essay. There's 5 essays in total.